Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mars TV. Today we have Margherita Cardi from Tyvak International. She's the VP Programs and Business Development at the company, and I'm very honored that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Tara, for inviting me. So excited to do that with you.
So thank you. And before we dive into more of the space stuff, please tell us about your background and your career evolution.
Sure. Starting from the academic period, let's say, I am a space engineer. So I graduated in space engineering in Rome, La Sapienza University, a while ago now. And let's say we had this aerospace first 3 years, and then I chose the space sector rather than the aeronautic one. And I did then a second level master course in satellites. So I could choose among the different domains of the space sectors, and so between the ground, the launchers, and the satellites, let's say. And so satellite is what I choose for my let's say specialization. And but after that, for a wide range of different things, I ended up in working in a company which was specialized in the ground segment. And this gave me the opportunity to work in French Guiana at the European Spaceport. So I spent a couple of years over there. And this gave me a lot of exposure to how launching a satellite was working as a process. So being exposed to the ground, to the launcher itself, and the different payloads that were to be launched. And so it was a very good first job, I would say. But then after that, I wanted to really come back to the satellite platforms. And so that's where I started actually working in Tyvak. And this was back in 2016. And when I was joining the company, there was literally, let's say, 3 persons. I was number 3, and we were starting as a startup, and we were hosted in the business incubator here in Torino at the Polytechnic of Turin. And yeah, we started this bet, I would say, and now here I am. So along the journey in Tyvak, I did start as a system engineer. So we were really few people, and so we were doing a lot of things. And so the systems engineering preparation, let's say, was really helping in covering a lot of different topics. But then after a couple of years, maybe my natural, let's say, inclination to the program management was really highlighted. And so that's where I started to be a program manager first for different missions. And then I started to manage a team of program managers. So of course we were growing in the meantime. And so I could have a small team of program managers. And then after that, after 10 years, let's say, now I am covering the role of VP programs and business development. So I have under my responsibility the program managers again, but then also the business development team and the systems engineering. So in this way, we would like to harmonize, let's say, our offers for the future possible missions and future, let's say, opportunities, making sure that this is like current and harmonized with what we are executing. And so we want to make sure that backlog and pipeline, let's say, are well aligned. And so that's why I have under my responsibility also these 2 additional areas. So in a nutshell, this is, let's say, a good summary of the evolution of my career so far.
That's amazing. Have you always been interested in space growing up? How did it start?
Yeah. I think, yes, it was something that it was there since when I was very young. However, I didn't think really to do the space engineering sector. I have a family that is full of doctors, medical doctors. And so let's say also this was something that was always in the background, but when I had to choose, then I decided to do something different and trying to follow a little bit my original passion for space. So there was, let's say, astrophysical things. There were different things, but then the engineering domain was really familiar with my way of living also. So it was a good match at the end.
So being in the position that you are in right now, being a programs manager, and I do understand and see like your vast experience in the systems engineering and the and the engineering in space in different aspects of it, but obviously you have leadership qualities that you have kind of figured out that they're kind of the driver to what you're doing now and by managing lots of people. So tell us about your role right now and how do you make sure that all of the players and the stakeholders and the technical experts like come together, because I think that this is difficult. Like if there isn't an engineer who's focused on one particular aspect, you need to know enough and understand enough what they're doing, but also you need to know everybody else's work.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. So I always see this kind of work like an orchestra. You have the different instruments playing their own role, and of course, each of them is very important to the final result. But then you have to have someone that is having a real good picture, a global picture of what is going on, what's the objective, and having also the mid-long-term view. And so, of course, knowing about each instrument at least a little bit really helps, because you really know what we are talking about, and you can really help the people and the team facing the different problems that we every day face. However, sometimes the technical engineers tend to want to do the things in a very perfect way, in a very detailed way, and also sometimes, diving into some path that finally are not really useful for that particular milestone or objective or achievement that we have to pursue. And so it's very important then to also let them understanding that this will be a very good thing to do, but that's not necessary in this moment. It's not really needed. This is related to the technical team, so the internal team that we are managing as a program manager. Then we have also the other stakeholders. So we have the management of the company, of course, that wants also to see the results in terms of, finance and schedule and processes. We have the external customers that not often they very, very well know what they want. And this is also another challenge that I want to talk about a little bit. And we have suppliers, they have other needs and other constraints. And so the program managers typically are the central node of this network, let's say. And so they have to receive all the inputs, understanding all the requirements, and find the right balance between all of these needs. And this is valid internally, but also externally. And so I think that in addition to the technical preparation that, as I was saying, of course, helps a lot, there are specific soft skills that we as program manager actually need in order to balance and negotiate and understanding what's needed in a specific moment based on the customer, on the specific mission, and all the different aspects. So it's not a simple role. And if you do that in a good way, this really makes the difference actually in the execution point of view. And another important thing is to have clear the objective of what we are doing. So what's the final goal and what are the constraints? And sometimes the customer, they don't know what they want. I mean, they have something in mind, but we need to help them figuring out. So sometimes they come to us and say, I want this thing and I want it done this way, because they have their idea. However, the important for us is to understand what they want, and then we have to figure out the what, the how, let's say, the way we want the objective to be achieved. And so that's a real difficult step into a program, and this really can make the difference, I would say.
I'm curious to know, now that you said that sometimes you have to tell people when something they're working on is not a priority, and while you're also balancing all the other aspects, how much of pushback do you get from people who think that, yes, no, this is a priority, or do you feel like in this environment, because of the high stakes and high risks in the industry itself, do you feel like there is more competing forces between the different areas, or you think that everything or it's more collaboration?
I will say both. There are daily discussions within the team of whether we should do something. Is that important, or can we move that to another moment, or in another stage of the program, or can we just avoid to do that? So this kind of discussions are, I would say, on a daily basis internally to the team. And so, of course, the more you grow and the more things tend to repeat themselves, let's say you can face the same kind of problem. And so treasuring about your experience and your heritage, let's say, helps. And so that's why when you have a team that is not really changing a lot, but you have a core team that is stable, it's easier to remember, okay, I already saw that. And so let's remember how we fix that in that occasion, and let's see if we can replicate the solution, because sometimes it's not possible. So there are a lot of pushback that we do as program manager with the technical team, and they do towards us. I mean, sometimes they convince us that that this is something that we need to do, it's very important, and we discuss together about the implications of doing or not doing. So discussions about risks and trade-off and negotiations are really on a daily basis, I would say, in our domain, at least in our company. And I think it's a positive thing. It's not a bad thing. It's very positive.
Before we get into more of the questions that I want to hear about what you do and your day-to-day, please tell us about what Tyvak International does, and what's the space where it's working within the space industry.
Our company is a vertical integrator, and that's a wording that we use to say that we can follow the customers from the very beginning to the very end of a mission. So it's a kind of a end-to-end service to them, meaning that typically our customers want to do a mission, and they might have a payload, an instrument that they want to fly, or they want to do some specific application. And so we do have the technology and the competence to follow the full cycle, from the design to the procurement, assembly, integration, and test. We cover also the launch part, so we offer the launch services to the customers, and we also do the in-orbit operations. And so, as you can see, is really from the very first concept of a mission to the actual operations in orbit, and we do everything in-house. We do some testing activities just in an external facility, such as the vibration testing, for example. We do not have a shaker in the company, but for that specific test, we just go outside to our supply, relying on our supply chain. So this gives a lot of advantages to the customers, because they have a single interface for the war mission, so from the beginning to the end, and that's the first point. Also, the exposure of the team to the full life cycle is helping, because typically the persons that designs the spacecraft are also exposed to the operational phase. So they know, okay, I designed the spacecraft to do this thing in this situation. Let's see if it does actually, and how we can correct if it doesn't. So we can circle back a lot of lessons learned and feedback throughout all the phases. So that's this builds a very deep knowledge of the behavior of the satellite in the whole team. So this is our core business, let's say. So of course we do a lot of also feasibility studies and technology development, but our core business, let's say, is to fly a mission. And so our customers, again, are institutions or commercial partners that they want a service, a technology to be demonstrated, or a specific application. So, for example, Earth observation or telecom or proximity operations. So depending on what their instrument or technology is doing, we actually design and build the mission around that for the customer. And again, from the beginning to the end. So that's, I would say, a good summary of what we are doing at Tyvak.
So with when you say customer, as someone who's on the outside, would always kind of think about like institutions, like you said, and big public or governmental agencies and space agencies. I'm just curious as to, do you also get individual customers or private companies, or is usually the space is only now dominated by only the space companies who can execute the contracts for the space agencies?
Well, let's say our customers' portfolio is a good balance between these two. So we have, I would say, a 50% of programs that are funded by space agencies, I would say. So mainly the European and Italian Space Agency. But another 50% is commercial. So private companies that want services or applications flying. And so I would say that it's hard to rely just on one type of customer, because then your business case is really relying on a single source of contracts, of revenues, and of business. And so we always try to balance these two. And actually, so far we have almost 20 satellites launched along these years, and I can say that 50% of different type of customer is the track that we always try to keep, and also for the future, for the offers that we are preparing for proposals for future business, we are still trying to keep this track for executions are flexible in a way that we can really accommodate both type of request and way of working.
So with that in mind, how did you find that with your career and history and experience throughout the years, would you say that how do you see the change in how the space industry has accelerated in the recent years? Like for you, because you've always been in the space industry and you're working in that sector. For you, as on the inside, do you feel this thing that we feel on the outside, that there is a boom that happened, or has it always been for the insiders always like kind of there's always something to do?
Well, there is always something to do, but I have to say that in the last years, the number of space companies, of course, did exponentially grow. And specifically in the area of Torino, where we are in the north of Italy, there is also, we can see a lot of new realities that are trying to get into this field. So there is a lot more competition in this moment, because we do not have anymore just the big players, which are still there, of course, and can support a certain type of mission. But we, as a small companies, we are demonstrating that we are also around, let's say, and so that we can do the things in a different way. We are not always competing with the big players. We do different things in another way. And so with the small satellites that we are specialized in, the space market has changed a lot. And so we can really put a satellite in orbit in a few months. So the time of development and the cost associated to that are really different. And so we are demonstrating that we can do actually things in a faster and cheaper and more agile way. Of course, we cannot, again, compete the performance yet totally, but the challenges in the miniaturization of the technology are really boosting a lot the companies and the technological entities like research institutions, for example, just to miniaturize the things and the instruments, the subsystems, etc., in order to fit in a smaller volume. And so this is now representing a real alternatives to the I would say more traditional, or let's say more more traditional satellites. And so given that, a lot of companies that now are growing want to really tackle this kind of domain. So the competition now is way more aggressive. I would say that how it was 20 years ago, of course.
And for being complementary, kind of this feeds into the idea that of the importance of relationships between the different stakeholders. And on the one hand, you really have to compete with a lot of factors and a lot of stakeholders and maybe other companies. But at the same time, you kind of need to keep the balance and the harmony between them so you're able to execute your project. So tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, well, the relation part is it's a crucial part of the space business, I would say. There is besides the technical competence that you have to bring in and you have to demonstrate that your satellite works. I mean, that's the starting point for everybody. However, then the way you execute, the way you listen to the customer needs, and the relation that you establish with them is crucial. Because, of course, if you have a satellite that is working and your customer is happy and they had a good relation with you during the project, it's easy that they will come back to you to ask something else. That's a lot valid with the commercial, where, let's say, everything is based on the B2B relation. So in that area, this is crucial. However, also with the institution, it's important to really create a good relation and propose a solution and be proactive and trying to understand where the roadmap of that institution is going, and maybe be proactive and also, maybe invest in an internal R&D project, for example, because you know that the roadmap is going there and you want to show that, okay, I understood that, I see that. And so I put my team with a small project to invest few hours of work to try to understand better this need, and we can elaborate a concept. Just yesterday, the Ministerial Conference 2025 was concluded, and so the round of the next, the fund running for the next 3 years of space missions was ended. And so this also is a result of speech and talks and discussions and strategies between the countries. And so imagine over there the relation is maybe the 80% of the actual goal then for the implementation. So we see that maybe in a scaled way, in a smaller way with our customers, but above all, if you deal with the institutions, the relation part is also a big piece of the puzzle, let's say.
This reminds me of something that you also said at the beginning, is that sometimes the customers come in and they don't know exactly what they want. And you as a program manager, also, you have to tell them about their program, evaluate it, give your your perspective and what you think based on your experience they might want. You'll figure out what they want. And I assume that also space agencies have probably, do you think that you feel they have also the same similar problem where they might look for you to actually tell them what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, definitely, because especially with the small satellites, I mean, this is something really, I would say, new in, let's say, scaled in the last decades. It's a pretty new um, domain, and so in the space agencies, a lot of persons that are working over there since forever, they are maybe more used to, the more traditional missions, and so it's possible that they don't know how doing a space mission with a small satellite works, and so we are the expert there, and so there are a lot of review processes that we face where we have experts from the agency that has a different background, and so they have this I wouldn't say bias, I would say experience. So they have done things in a way, and they are just discovering how things can work differently with a smaller satellite, and so a different type of mission. And so we have to deal with them, discuss with them about the different risk profile that a mission can have that maybe they are not used to, and a different way that we can execute the things. And so that's valid on the commercial, but also on the institutional side. I would say this is very common. And along the program, sometimes I try to see from the top level, let's say, when we execute a program and we launch and operate it, so we are towards the end. If we go back and remember the initial requirements of a customer and what they thought they wanted at the beginning, it's easy that things evolve, because the thing can really take shape while executing, and so that's also another interesting aspect of the work. Of course, they have some ideas, but we help them translate this idea with the requirements and design constraints and then operational needs. So that's also another interesting part of the program. I talk about educate the customer, but not because they don't know what they are talking about, but because sometimes they don't really know what they want. And it's also often happening that agencies do some public tender of market analysis or concept analysis, because they have something in mind, but before they commit to a mission or funding, they want to see what the industry propose based on their technology or their experience. So they kind of have an idea in mind, but they first ask to the industrial ecosystem, which is evolving very quickly in the last years. What's the state of the art now? So what we could actually do with this money in this application? And so it's also a nice way to tell the agency, look, we are doing that. There is this technology, there is this potential application. Let's discuss about that. So it's another thing that we usually participate to in order to propose a solution to a general idea that an institution can have.
So tell us more about what missions or public missions that Tyvak has been involved in, so that people can follow right now.
Yeah, so of course, a lot of the executed mission by Tyvak International public. So if you just type our name on Google, you can find them. There are a few of them that we are prime contractors. So this means that we are responsible for the execution towards the customer, but we also manage a consortium of entities. This might be industrial companies or research entities, universities, that all together, each of them brings a piece of the actual work, and we put everything together and we manage the consortium. So I can have a lot of example, but maybe the most recent, let's say, and mission that had also a lot of visibility is the Milani mission. The Milani mission is part of the Hera mission, which is part of the planetary defense program for ESA. it was a really challenging and demanding mission that didn't end yet, but it was launched last year, October, and it lasted 3 years, more or less. It's very exciting mission because we are going to visit an asteroid which was previously impacted by another satellite from NASA, and so it was also a collaboration between ESA and NASA as a whole, let's say, mission profile. And we do one of the two nano satellites on board the Hera, and so our satellite is named Milani, and the objective is to again be released in proximity of the asteroid in order to do some images and measurements. So we have some instruments on board, and we want to, and the aim also is to demonstrate that this very small drone, let's say, is a very small vehicle, can actually be released from the mothercraft and doing rendezvous around the asteroid and do some images and detect the presence of dust after the impact. And yeah, let's say there are a lot of objectives, but this is a real good example of how the execution towards an objective and the collaboration within the agency with the agency were really key to the success. So we had really a tight schedule. We had like 3.5 years from kickoff to launch. This was very helpful, and also we found a collaboration with the ESA team, which actually was very helpful and really motivating the full execution. Of course, the Italian Space Agency did support the mission because, of course, the funding came from Italy. But our first reporter, let's say, was ESA, and so the team of ESA in this mission was really amazing and was really helping to reach the objective. It was very collaborative process. We learned a lot. I mean, in these 4 years, 3.5 years.
Sounds like a very steep learning curve. But
yeah, correct. It was like a marathon. We had the 3.5 years, which were crazy. The rhythms were crazy. And after the launch, we have 2 years of cruise phase. So meaning that the Milani spacecraft is inside the mothercraft and doing his cruise phase. So now we are just in a waiting mode. We just do some checkout every 2 to 3 months just to see that Milani is alive. And then we have to wait until the end of 2026 in order to actually arrive at the final destination and be released and start our mission. So as a program manager, I will, and my team, of course, we will see the actual behavior of the satellite just, in 2027. Wow. So, and we started in 2021-ish. So it's a very strange thing. We ran for 4 years, now we wait, and then there will be another moment of craziness when we approach the asteroid and will be released. So can't wait for that. But now we are in the middle of the cruise phase, so we are in this waiting mode, let's say.
You just remind me, like when people hear about there is a mission that was completed or a lander that landed somewhere or there's an orbiter somewhere, people outside, it's hard to imagine the number of years that need to take for this one particular. We still didn't talk about the time it takes for the mission to reach the destination. All of the prep takes years and years, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, and
you have to lose track of that.
Yeah, but so 2 points here. First of all, we speak about 3 to 4 years for a mission, which for us is long. I mean, we can execute mission is in a way less time than that. So for commercial customers, for example, we can be in orbit in 8 months, for example. So for years, for now, for us, it's a lot. However, if you think about the more traditional satellites, it was even 10, 20 years. And so if you scale that a little bit, the time to see something done from the beginning to the end is reducing a lot. And with small spacecraft, it's even lowering faster. So for us, Milan emission is a good example of how we can do deep space in a very shorter time. So we developed things in 3 to 4 years. However, now we are waiting, and we then have to reach the asset. So as a whole, it will be like a 6 to 7 years mission. But for a CubeSat, it's a lot. I mean, we used to have applications that also can be flying in less than 1 year, because the technology is also evolving a lot faster with the small satellites. And so we have to be quick in flying them, demonstrate them, fail them if needed, so that we can start again from the beginning. And so that's one of the advantages.
Speaking of the technologies, because you said that the technologies are always evolving, obviously, how do you keep track of all of the new technologies and making sure that they might fit in your mission? And what if they are in the early stages? Do you do like a partial mission to test that new technology before you offer it to a customer, or you have your own methods to test it for the risks quickly before? Like, how do you manage balance between this is a new technology that we need to take advantage right now, but we haven't tested it very well to offer it as part of our engineering systems?
So let's say the last way you have the ultimate way you have to test the technology is to fly that. So of course you can maximize your ground testing and reach the qualification on ground. So this is already an amazing result. However, you really want to fly that to see how it operates in the real environment. However, there are a lot of projects, mainly for the institution, I would say, that are just technology development. And so you can sign a contract not for fly a technology, but to reach a certain stage of a development. And so the institution is giving you funding in order to demonstrate the technology. So in this case, the platform provider, so let's say Tyvak, for example, can be part of this contract in order to help the technology developer to take into consideration the interfaces with the platform and the real environment in orbit. And so we are there to provide, and then once this reaches a good technology readiness level, let's say, the next step is to fly them. And so with small spacecraft, since they are quicker and cheaper, even the customers are willing to take more risk and to say, okay, let's fly this mission with this system. I know that it's not yet qualified in orbit, but since we are doing that in 1 year and with a reduced amount of money, I can take the risk that this is not working or not perfectly working. So this is why I was saying also before, so this domain is opening also to a different risk profile of the mission, and the customers know that, and so they are willing to take this kind of risk.
And because you mentioned the technology readiness level, do you have your own internal like metric for TRL, or do you use like NASA's or ESA's level? Like because as a company you might want to be more conservative maybe, or maybe more liberal in this interpretation. So I'm just curious if you follow a specific one or you have your own.
No, the TRL table, let's say, is pretty standard, and we all use pretty much the same. Specifically, we use the one of ESA, but the other ones are not really much different. So the TRL standards are pretty common to the world, let's say, to this world. So if I say TRL 9, everybody knows that this technology did fly in orbit and is qualified. And so this is a common metric that we use. Another way to really be, you were asking before, how do you know about technology in the world? So how can you really be at the same speed and follow the progresses? So for this, market analysis are always a good way of proceeding. And so our team periodically, let's say, do some survey of the web, the news, and whatever. It's publicly available to search for new product. But also conferences are very useful for that, because in the conferences you can go and in 2 or 3 days you can have a lot of booths and stands and new companies, and you can really go to the persons and ask what are you doing. They maybe have some mock-up or models, and they can tell you, yeah, we are TRL6 for this system, for example. We are looking for an opportunity to fly that. And so conferences are crucial to have a physical survey and meet the people. And of course, again, the relation part here plays a role, because
in addition to being in the space sector, which is already exciting in of itself, it might be exciting to be also in Italy, because of almost all the conferences I've been to, space conferences, Italian Space Agency and the Italian companies are dominating. And it's pretty cool to see, because even though there's the European Space Agency, Italy kind of feel like it carved its way, and now it's playing a very, very important role in the space evolution.
Yeah, I mean I would say that this is an historical heritage also, because historically Italy has been, I think, always in the top 3 contributors in the space sector in Europe. So it's typically Germany and France are above us, but Italy has always been in the first 3. And so there is a real tradition and a real history here in space. So now even more, because of what we were discussing before. So there are a lot of small companies that are growing and developing technologies. And so let's say this helps in keeping this role in Europe. And I remember there was a conference a couple of years ago that we were attending, and we had a lot of presentation to our mission. And while there, we realized that there were a lot of other Italian companies that were presenting their results and their objectives. And so at the final speech, the organizer said, there's a lot of Italy here. So I think that this is it's not a secret. I mean, for us, maybe it's really kind of something that is normal. But when people approach this field for the first time, they are surprised about how much Italy there is in this field. So we tend to forget that, but it's a very good thing to remember. And also from the results of the ministerial of yesterday, we can confirm that Italian presence is really huge.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All of my, not all, many, or most of the friends that I have in the space industry are Italian. So it's pretty,
really?
pretty cool. I almost have to learn the language too. So no,
you have to start with acronyms. We speak by acronyms most of the time. So if you want to learn about some languages, you will have to start with acronyms, unfortunately.
It is a very fascinating thing how much the space industry love acronyms, like NASA, ESA, all of it. It's nice.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I want to be mindful of your time, and I have one final question for you. Tell us about the lessons learned from your experience, and tied with that, what's your advice for new emerging companies?
Okay. Lessons learned from my experience. From a personal perspective, let's say we spoke a lot about the global picture view. And so specifically for program managers, I would say that one thing that I've learned is to never lose the view, because in a small team, in a small company, is very easy to dig into the details, and let's say you are running to meet the schedule, to meet the cost, etc. So it's easy that the day-by-day work is making you lose a little bit the high-level picture and what's the objective. So that's something that I've learned, and I try to keep in my work, and also to teach to the new program managers, of course. The other thing is that when I started, maybe I was I was tending to plan for, there is a baseline solution, and there is a baseline plan, that there is option A, option B, backup plan C, etc. So we had a lot of I used to try to figure out all of the possible things that could have happened in order to have the different plans. But at some point I realized that this is not working, and at least for me, and it's not even realistic, because you plan for something, and the day after something else happen. Might be on the technical, might be a customer new request, might be another member of the team that jumps in the program and had another idea. So you have to really let the external world and life play some cards, and it's impossible to predict all the possible things that can happen. And so it's very good to have a baseline plan, and to know that something can go wrong, but to have an exact schedule for the different options that you can have is just not applicable just at day one. At least for our rhythms and for our quick way of executing, you have to have one plan, and leave also other persons or events or the customer play their role, because things can change in a real quick way. And so it's just a time consuming to try to figure out all the possible options. So to be honest, I stopped to do that, and I am a little bit more relaxed, to be honest, because it was very time consuming and energy consuming. And so this is something that I learned, and I try to teach to the other program managers that are under my area. And for new companies, of course, again, here now the competition is really hard today. And so I would say that besides the main starting point, that you have to have a technology that works, and that is really answering a market need. And so doing a market analysis and understanding where the gaps are is crucial, and you have to focus on your product. But the very first thing that you have to do is to demonstrate that your product that is valid and is working. So of course at the beginning is a lot of relation, a lot of being outside to promote your product, to make people understand again what gap is filling and why is revolutionary or disruptive or whatever. And so be very aware about what is happening around, to really try to fit in the right place, and working in a relation with good relations with the partners, customers, the team, because at the end, if I had a very nice project with you, because we worked together in a very good way, you felt reassured by me, and vice versa. At the end, if I have a problem or if I have an idea, I really want to have by myself next to me person that I really worked in a nice way with. And so this is kind of something that I would advise to the new realities that are jumping in this field or trying to find their place in this industry.
Well, that's a great last final note to end the conversation. Very, very inspiring, and I hope it's also motivating. I would really, really like to thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara, for the invite, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.